Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to Market Mastery, How to Launch with Precision. My name is Michelle Eisenberg, and I am a program assistant at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. And for those of you who may not know, the NASDAQ Center is a nonprofit building a better path for entrepreneurs worldwide by improving inclusion, access, and knowledge in entrepreneurship. So, as you will see in the chat in a moment, the NASDAQ Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to entrepreneurs across all races, industries, and geographies. So, definitely make sure to check out those links and resources in the chat. And then just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. First, let us know where you're dialing in from in the chat. We always love to connect. And second, we are going to open up for live Q&A at the end of the event. So please make sure to submit your questions for us in that Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation, and we will try our best to get to all of them. And of course, none of what we do could be possible at the center without all of the amazing support from our sponsors, including NASDAQ, Lehigh University, BMO, Airbnb, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, Woodruff Sawyer, Microsoft Entrepreneurship for Positive Impact, BPM, and HubSpot for Startups. We are humbled by their contributions and hope you are grateful too. And so before we get started, we always like to launch a couple polls just to step back and see how everyone is doing in the room. This first one is going to ask, how are you feeling? Fearful, anxious, surviving, or optimistic? I'll give everyone a couple moments to submit a response here. Thank you, thank you. All right, I'm going to end this poll, share these results. Awesome. Looks like optimism is in the lead. We love to see that, but definitely have some feelings of surviving and anxiety. Hopefully, our conversation today will help alleviate some of those feelings. I'm going to stop sharing this poll and launch that second poll. What is keeping you up at night? Finance, sales, marketing, scale, pivot, team, or surviving? And this one just tells us a little bit more about your current entrepreneurial needs so that we can continue to create relevant programming for all of you. Awesome. We got folks from Virginia, Arizona, DC, California, New Jersey, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, Iran, Connecticut, Massachusetts, India. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Awesome. I'm going to end this poll, share these results. All right. Looks like finance, sales, and marketing really neck and neck here. Finance just pulling ahead. We also got pivot, team, and surviving here. So thank you. This is super helpful for future programming. I'm going to stop sharing that poll. And without any further delay, please join me in giving the warmest welcome to our special guest, Julie Shen, founder of Springstead. Julie, it is such a pleasure to have you back on the stage with us. Super excited for today. I'm going to pass it right over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, fantastic. It is so nice to be here, and thank you all for taking an hour in the new year to join us for today's session. I'm Julie Shen, and I'll be taking you through how to launch a new initiative strategically, especially in today's highly competitive environment. This is relevant for both new and existing businesses. For a new business, you'd want to do this exercise pre-launch to be precise about how you're entering the playing field. And for an existing business, your goal is to grow, expand, and diversify. So you'd want to do this exercise when evaluating new expansion and business opportunities. All right, Anna, would you mind going to the next slide? Thank you. So before we get started, let me just introduce myself and a quick bio. I'm the founder of Springstead. I'm a chief business officer working with high impact founders and organizations on strategy and growth. I spent the majority of my career at large organizations like HBO and Condé Nast, building new and next-gen businesses for established enterprises. We would basically explore new initiatives to invest in order to stay digitally transformative, capture market share, and reach new consumers. So I've always been at the intersection of strategy, innovation, and P&L management. I would make the investment case for the right opportunities to invest in, go on to incubate, launch, and oversee those new businesses in a GM-ish role to ensure that we were developing the right strategic goals and rowing towards financial success. And then now I bring that level of experience directly to founders and startups, and I look forward to sharing some insights with you today. The other thing I should say is I'll preemptively share that I'm just getting over a cold, so please bear with me if I need to catch my breath or need to take some quick water breaks. All right, next slide. To give you guys a rundown of how today's session will go. We'll set the stage for how you can launch a new business or a new initiative within an existing business. This involves assessing the market landscape as well as the competitive landscape, understanding who your customers are, what the market opportunity is for your product or service, and what is your special sauce ultimately, right? And what's your value proposition in a highly competitive environment? We'll wrap up the conversation by threading it all together for how this will become the foundation of your business plan and go-to-market strategy. I will say that the foundation of what we're talking about today is actually quite textbook, but I'm bringing more than 15 years of hands-on experience to give this more texture, more color, more context, and make this as applicable for entrepreneurs as possible. It's been surprising because in my experience working across various startups and even later stage organizations, I've been surprised at how many people haven't actually done an exercise like this prior to launch. And I'm a huge advocate for them to do so, because not doing this strategic assessment is like launching blindly, perhaps solely based on gut. And while your intuition as a leader is powerful, it's especially powerful when you can match that to data, insights, and a defined strategy. Some of you may have heard this before, but being a leader is often about what you say yes to versus what you say, what you say no to. Let me rephrase. Being a leader is often about what you say no to versus what you say yes to, because so many things will pull at your attention and time. And if you say yes to all of those things, you leave yourself scattered. You spread your power and your resources quite thin. Versus if you funnel and prioritize your energy towards the intentional things that can actually move your business forward. And that's what this strategic assessment does. It allows you to identify your priorities so you can be thoughtful about your time, your energy, your resources, and most importantly, capital. Before we begin, I wanted to just take a quick pulse from our attendees. Can you drop into the chat if you've done a strategic assessment like this before, especially before you've launched a new business? Let's just take a quick few moments for people to give me some feedback. Thank you, guys. Okay, a lot of people coming through. Yes, no, yes through Cornell. All right. And hi, everyone. Okay. Okay. So just as anticipated, some of you have done this, but most of you have not. And thank you all for your feedback. My hope is that even if you have done an exercise like this before, you still find nuggets of valuable information from today's session that can help you redefine how you approach your business. Because this is really important. This kind of exercise is not just one and done. It's not like you do this once in your business and you never touch it again. It's something that should be updated on an ongoing basis as the market and consumer appetite continue to rapidly evolve. Being up to date on your strategy allows you to stay ahead of the curve and be very, very responsive to market changes, which happen incredibly fast these days. So with that, let's get started. Let's jump to the next slide. All right, real talk. Being a business owner these days is really tough, right? Because regardless of the size of your organization, here are the same set of challenges that plague every entrepreneur and CEO I know. And those are high competition, high customer acquisition costs. The market is very saturated, so consumers are inundated with many choices. You have to make tough decisions around how best to allocate your funds to maximize the return on investment, and not to mention the current economic condition. So when you're assessing a new business idea to pursue, your priority is sussing out, one, is this an idea worth pursuing? And how do you choose a winning idea amongst multiple options? Two, can you turn the idea into a viable business concept? And three, then how do you strategically bring this concept into a business plan, into a live business that provides you with the greatest potential for success? And how that all translates into actionable steps when developing a strategic go-to-market is, first, you're identifying the problem, because every great business addresses a gap, a need, or problem that your consumers have. So when you're thinking about your business idea, the first question you should ask yourself is, what is the specific problem that you're trying to solve? And why is this a problem? Then, to add on to that, what's your solution? And how is your solution unique, different, and better than what's already out there? Next, you look at the market opportunity. And this looks at how big the market is. And specifically, what that means is, how many people does this problem affect? Why is now the right time for your business idea to be launched? And how much money are people willing to spend to solve this problem? And while we don't cover the last question in today's session around money, the last question does help lay the foundation of what your monetization model and pricing strategy would be. Next, you'd want to look at who else is playing. Who are your direct and indirect competitors? As well as how are they currently solving the problem and how much market share do they have? Then, who are you solving the problem for? This looks at your target audience and your ideal customer profile. Here, you're really putting yourself in your customer's shoes to understand their priorities, their needs, and their pain points. Because you need to know, how do they discover new brands? What do they want from a brand these days? What makes them trust a new brand? And how do they ultimately become paying customers and repeating customers? Finally, what you need to do is define your unique value proposition, which basically asks, why are you uniquely positioned and qualified to solve this problem? Why should customers choose you over your competitors? A business plan or go-to-market strategy is basically an analysis, assessment, and plan to address the questions and steps that we just talked about. This is critical in any business because it gives you a holistic viewpoint to see all of the different pieces that are on the chessboard, allowing you to be strategic and intentional to game plan your moves in order to win the game. So let's take a look at some of these steps in detail. Next slide, please. All right. Because of our limited time today, we have a lot to get through, we're going to jump straight to step 2 to assess the market opportunity. I assume that most of the attendees here today already have an idea or ideas around their new business. And in doing so, they've already identified the problem, what the solution is, and how their solution is different from those that are already out there. But also don't fret. So let's say if you haven't done the ladder exercise of how your solution is unique, I really do think that going through the rest of these slides will help you crystallize on that. A market opportunity analysis is 2 parts, a quantitative part and a qualitative part. The quantitative part is where you quantify the market size and the actual potential of your business. The qualitative part is where you conduct market research, competitive analysis, consumer insights to understand where the greatest opportunity and path to success is. In a way, it gives you the foresight to see into the future, because through this analysis, you'll be able to answer questions like, what are the forces shaping the market today? What will the market look like in a year? Is it actually growing in 5 years? And how is your target audience behaving and changing? After assessing everything from industry trends to current marketing tactics that your competitors deploy, you'll be able to hypothesize the sales and marketing strategies that would be most appealing to your ideal customers. When you truly understand the market and your consumers, you have an aerial view because, again, you can see all of the pieces on the chessboard to identify the opportunities of your business. Let's start with the quantitative market size on the left. We're going to go through this in a bit more detail. What this does is it helps you gauge the potential business based on the industry that your business is in. So you'll often see this addressed in TAM, SAM, SOM, and CAGR. And we'll go through each of these in detail. TAM stands for Total Addressable Market. This represents how big the total number of consumers are, the consumer spending, and industry revenue. It represents the total market value and maximum potential for an industry. And what it does is it serves as a measure to determine if there's enough potential demand for your product or service. The easiest way to assess what the TAM is to gather data from industry research or market reports from places like Gartner and Nielsen. Google, I promise you, is a great way to start, especially if you don't want to pay thousands of dollars each year to access some of this, the data platforms. For example, these reports will identify a global market value for the following industries. Example, supplement industry at $240 billion, the travel and tourism industry at $615 billion, the video streaming industry at $455 billion. These are the numbers that would represent the TAM for those industries. Another thing to take into consideration here is the CAGR for your industry. CAGR stands for Compounded Annual Growth Rate and represents the annual growth rate over a specified number of years. Each industry has a different CAGR benchmark because they either grow or decline at different rates based on customer appetite and where the market is going. What you want to focus on here is that your new business is in a category that has a positive CAGR, because that indicates a healthy industry performance and growing customer demand. You'd want to be cautious of launching a new business in a category that potentially has declining demand. Next, let's talk about SAM. So SAM stands for Serviceable Addressable Market. If TAM were the overall pie, SAM represents a smaller piece or a slice of that pie. And that slice is the slice that can be served by your company's products and services based on your specific category within that industry and your customer segment. So let's do an example. Let's say that your TAM is the supplements market. And the total market includes a lot of different segments like dietary supplements, vitamins and minerals, functional food and beverages like energy drinks. And it also includes customers that are diverse, ranging from all types of ages and gender. But your business is specifically focused on dietary supplements and only applicable towards female customers within the age group of 25 to 45. This would be the segmentation and the cut that you would take to represent your SAM, because it's the group of customers that your business would actually serve. To calculate the SAM, there are two approaches. So you could do a tops-down approach or a bottoms-up approach. A tops-down approach basically means that you're taking a cut and a percentage from the TAM. So what you would do is you would approximate the percentage of TAM that actually holds your category and your target audience. A lot of industry reports will break down the value of category segmentation within that industry. You can then estimate the proportion of your target audience by researching the total females within the age group 25 to 45 for your market. So let's say if your market is the total US market, the total females within age group of 25 to 45, that percentage compared to the total US population. And that percentage would be what you would use as a proxy to take a percentage of the TAM to get to your SAM, in addition to, of course, the category segmentation. I hope all of that makes sense. It's a little bit dense. You can also do a bottoms-up approach where you calculate the total number of target consumers in your market. So again, the demographic, right, within your segmentation, and you can estimate that number. And then you multiply that by your average product or service price. And that's how you would get to a calculation for your SAM. So let's talk about the next layer down, SOM. SOM stands for Serviceable Obtainable Market. And it's an even smaller slice within this, the piece of SAM, which is why TAM, SAM, and SOM are represented in concentric circles. So SOM is the amount of the market that would actually buy your products or services, because realistically, you wouldn't be able to convert 100% of your target audience into paying customers. So again, if you were doing this analysis tops down, you can look at the market share of some of your direct competitors, and you can research how long it took them to get there. You can estimate how much resources and capital they had to fuel their growth. And when you compare that to where you are with your brand, the resources that you have and the growth rate that you've seen for your business, if you were an existing business, you can approximate what is the percentage of SAM that you think you can convert to your brand in the next 3 to 5 years. That helps determine your SOM. If you were to do this analysis bottoms up, you would forecast the number of customers you can realistically attain multiplied by your average sales amount. So how do you estimate the number of customers you can realistically attain? What I always like to do is look at industry benchmarks, right? So go back to looking at your closest competitor. You research and you estimate how many customers does your closest competitor have? How long did it take for them to get to that stage of growth? And then you can use that as a proxy and a benchmark to back into your customers and how your customers can ramp from your year 1 to year 5. To recap, TAM is the entire pie of the market based on total industry revenue. SAM is a slice of the total market your brand can actually serve based on your business and customer segments. And SOM is an even smaller piece that represents how much your brand can realistically convert to paying customers. So SOM is ultimately what represents the revenue opportunity for your business. Now let's move over to the right side of the page and talk about the qualitative part of market assessment. And that starts with market research. Market research is exactly what it sounds like. You are basically researching, analyzing, and ingesting all the news, data, and insights on your industry that you can get your hands on. Again, Google is a really great place to start. What you're looking for is a deep understanding of what's happening in your market. You're looking to answer questions like, what are the current market conditions and where are the trends going? Where is innovation happening? What is driving market growth? And what are the risks and challenges? This research catapults you to being the most informed on the ins and outs of your industry. And being informed is how you can properly navigate and make the day-to-day decisions for your business. After conducting the market research, you move on to the competitive analysis. Let's take a look at the next slide to look at that in more detail. Thank you. So, a competitive analysis outlines for you in a methodical layout what your competitors are doing. This helps you pinpoint where you can outperform them. The first step, and I'm going to show you a template of what a competitive analysis looks like. So tune in with me. But the first step is to identify your competitors, both direct and indirect. Direct competitors are the ones that sell the same products or services as you to your target audience. Indirect competitors are the ones that sell similar, but maybe not exactly identical products and services to your audience. And while you're not directly competing, indirect competitors may still have the potential to take away your customers because consumers don't make purchasing decisions in a vacuum. What they're doing is they're evaluating how to balance their budget and wallet share across their entire lifestyle choice or choices. And so looking at both gives you a broader viewpoint to suss out industry best practices and benchmark for excellence. In this analysis, you're basically identifying the strengths and weaknesses of your competitors by researching their products, their pricing, their marketing strategies, key messaging, target customers, distribution channels, value proposition, and even more. What you want to do is you pay special attention to how your competitors are positioning themselves. So what story are they telling? How are the products being described? How is the company being described? And ultimately, what is their unique value proposition? I personally, as a bonus, to give you guys some insight, I personally love to comb through their customer reviews and feedback so I can truly pinpoint what customers are loving about their product and their brand, but also what's not working so well. And in the what's not working so well is the opportunity for you to come in and do that thing better. I also like to sleuth through their growth history and pull out information like how did they fuel their growth? What marketing strategies worked for them? Where did they find their first loyal customers? How long did it take them to gain momentum, and etc. And all of this allows you to see where you can pull best practices and inspiration from, but also where you can be excellent and different. Lastly, it helps you determine how you can position your brand and business strategy based on all of the different pieces on the chessboard. And we'll get into positioning in a little bit. If we can jump to the next slide, here is a template, a real template of how I would lay out a competitive analysis. So you would have all of your attributes vertically, and then you would have the various brands horizontally. I will also note that a competitive analysis is a living and breathing document. So this should be updated at least annually because nothing ever stays static. As you develop new products, update your marketing strategies, and expand into new areas, a current document like this serves as a really powerful resource for you to understand how you can move. You can also be as granular or pillar focused in this analysis as you want based on the needs of your business. What I outlined in this template are really like the major business considerations that you should be looking at. But you can also run an analysis, like different tabs of this analysis, specifically for areas of sales and marketing, content and programming, brand and design, social media, digital app and web experience. Like literally, you can drill down to each functional category based on what you'd want to analyze for your business and run a competitive analysis for that pillar. All right, next slide. So now let's talk about getting to know your customers. For a large corporation, there are a lot of tools at their disposal to understand customer demo, profile, behavior. And these tools include tools like surveys, focus groups, market intelligence reports, data integrations, working with consumer insight and market research firms. Assuming that you're an earlier stage startup or founder who does not have all of these at your disposal, we'll focus on the three options that I think are best for you to get to know your customers that are the most impactful, but also budget friendly. And those three options are customer surveys, industry research reports, and market and product testing. Each of these helps form a profile of who your target audience is, how to reach them, and how to appeal to them. So, starting with customer survey. The objective here is to truly peel back who your customers are and what they want. You can capture information around demographics, psychographics, brand affinity, and even customer journey, stickiness, desire, and needs. This generally works best for brands that have an existing customer base to survey from. The minimum number I like to see in a survey is 100 respondents in order to get a representative sample of your customer population. Anything less than that might be a little bit, skewing in data. So you really want at least 100 to be representative of your entire customer, base. In terms of deployment, you can promote the survey to your customer base for them to take the survey through the platforms that your brand is most engaged in. And those platform examples include emails, social media, blog posts, if you have a podcast, if you have a hosted community group. What you want to do, though, is you want to ensure that customers are incentivized to spend their time answering these questions for you, especially if it's a longer, more robust survey. What I always like to do is give respondents an incentive, and that incentive includes a monetary credit to the brand so they can get a reward immediately, plus the chance to win something. And that something could be like an Amex or an Amazon gift card that's of a meaningful amount. But that's just one example. You can get creative around your incentives. So let's say maybe your customers are fanatics of the brand and you can give them swag instead of a credit. Instead of giving a credit, you can give them a discount or free gifts. I've also seen brands partner with other brands, and the incentive to take the survey is a credit to the other brand. So really, here, the world is your oyster, but ultimately what you want to do is your goal is to maximize the number of survey takers by making the survey really worth people's time. For brands in pre-launch that don't have existing customers, you can still conduct surveys, but the goals of the survey will be slightly different. Here, you'd be seeking insights on product market fit and general brand discovery, instead of actual brand, affinity, because you haven't launched yet. So for example, instead of asking what your customers love about your brand, you would ask if they would be interested in a brand with your value proposition at your price point. Instead of asking them how they discovered your brand, you would ask them questions around how do they usually discover new brands and what converts them to being repeat customers. Here, you're forming a hypothesis and testing that hypothesis of who your target customers are and if they would be willing to buy your product at your price point. This is one of the first steps you would take to prove product market fit. All right, so that's customer surveys. Let's jump into the second vertical, which is research reports and articles. These are similar to the market research we discussed earlier. So remember, we talked about market research as one of the qualitative actions you take to understand market opportunity. But here, you're really focused on the consumer part. And what you are trying to get to is truly understand consumer behavior and trends. And this gives you a bigger picture to how consumers in your industry are evolving. The research is something that should be conducted annually for brands of every stage, but it's especially a great tool for brands in pre-launch to form a hypothesis of who your customers are and how they behave. So once you form that hypothesis, you can then test that hypothesis in customer surveys to prove product market fit. And this is the reason why I strongly encourage brands to do both the customer survey and the consumer research in parallel or together, not parallel, because these tools together form a powerful ally to round out your understanding of your customers. The customer survey is to understand your actual customers on a micro level, and the consumer research is to understand consumer trends at a macro level. Lastly, market and product testing is a great way to get actual customer feedback on your products or services. Here, users are using your products or services and in parallel, answering questions to provide insights around things like product efficacy, product design, price point, user experience, and user preferences. You're essentially testing how your target audience actually reacts to what you're putting out there. This is a great way to test new products, gain feedback on various product variations and decisions, and assess the actual consumer reception of your brand. And here's the best part. For brands in pre-launch, this market testing, all the answers, all of the customers that are doing this provides you a powerful source for testimonials when you launch and an actual initial customer base to launch to if they opt into receiving news from you down the line. There are two ways you can conduct market research. You can DIY it, where you source your audience and you ask them if they want to be part of your product testing process. I've seen great success in sourcing testers from active, like-minded communities, like a Facebook group, a Geneva chat, and even in-person events. But the goal here is to really source your ideal customers who you really think would be purchasing your product at that price point. The DIY process is also probably best reserved for feedback that you can get live on the spot, such as like UX, UI design, versus something that people would have to take home and use for a prolonged period of time. Another way to bring a market research, another way is to bring in a market research firm to do this with you, to do this for you. And here you have no limitations on what you can test because you will have professional support to conduct the test in a methodical, scientific manner for quality assurance. New firms like Highlight streamline this process in order to offer their services at a more accessible price point. So if you're a new startup with, smaller funds, I would definitely recommend looking into a company like Highlight. All right, can we jump into the next slide? So at this point, you should have conducted enough research, analysis, and assessment to have a strong understanding of the market and its trends, the competitive landscape, and the consumer profile and behavior. Integrating and leveraging all of these insights in cohesion is how you determine where the biggest opportunity is, and therefore, the positioning of the brand that's unique and valuable to your target customers. That is the value proposition. So let's look at how you actually conduct an assessment like this. Let's jump to the next slide. Thank you. Some of you may have seen a matrix or a grid like this before. You can create either one. I like to create both to be comprehensive. On the left is a matrix format that visually lays out for you what the competitive landscape looks like and where everyone is positioned. You put the two most defining attributes of your business on the X and Y axes. Let's walk through a simple example by looking at price and quality as the two defining attributes. So let's say for my business, I think that I can really be unique in where I'm positioned in terms of price for the level of quality. So I put price from low to high on the y-axis, and I put quality from low to high on the x-axis, and I chart out where my competitors stand. What you'll start to see are clusters of like areas of clusters. And that represents an area where there's high competition. And of course, as you can imagine, most brands that offer a premium service or product are also very expensive. I mean, that's logical, right? But where there is a white space is an area where there's not a lot of players. And that is representative of an opportunity. This is a space that, if your business and operations allow, has the potential or opportunity for you to own that white space. In this scenario, let's say I believe that based on my business model, level of expertise, and operational efficiencies, I can produce the same level of quality of product, but at a lower cost. In addition to, based on all of my market research and industry research, I've seen that the industry's retail price is actually extremely overinflated compared to the cost to produce that product. So where I see I have an opportunity is to produce a wonderful, high quality product at a much lower accessible price point for consumers, making that my special value proposition. And the prime example, a live example, a real example of something like this is Warby Parker, who was the first D2C brand to sell quality design forward eyeglasses at a much lower price point than existing traditional brands. And literally, it would like this was their value proposition. You know, the industry was extremely overinflated in terms of retail price for the cost of goods sold. They were able to bring down the retail price by going direct to consumer and also taking a smaller margin. And they were able to bring and basically break the entire business model for eyeglasses industry, which is, you know, really wonderful. On the right is a grid format with a similar concept, but it gives you more attributes to differentiate on. You would list you and your competitors vertically and the attributes you're comparing horizontally. What you list as attributes will vary, right, depending on your business and industry. Because let's say my competitive analysis for this grid is going to not look the same as your competitive versus someone else's competitive analysis because your attributes are going to be different. But how you define the list of your attributes is you're basically looking for the ones that are at the intersection of what you do differently and what your consumers really care about. So using the same example as the matrix on the left, the first attribute I would list in the grid format is premium quality at an accessible price point. That would literally be my attribute number one. Other examples, if I were to think about Warby Parker as my, you know, as kind of like my goal, my goal. Other examples that I could list as attributes are excellent customer service, convenience in purchasing through D2C, design forward aesthetics, unique tech or digital experience, and maybe, you know, these days, AI recommendation support. These are just examples, but ultimately what happens is when you compare all the brands across those attributes, you can clearly see that only your brand can bring these qualities forward. And these become your differentiators that identify your positioning relative to the market and your competitors. This also informs the marketing, copy, and creative strategies that you'd focus on in order to connect with your target audience. Because at this point, you understand the pain points of your target audience, what their priorities are, what they're looking for, and what they really want, right? And then you've also done the assessment of where do you differentiate, where are you unique at the intersection of what your consumers care about. That then informs how you do your marketing creatives, how you do your marketing campaigns, where you should prioritize your marketing channels, because those consumers, like, you know, where your consumers are the most active in and where they're discovering new brands. It ultimately combines to determine your competitive edge on what your offering is, where it's unique and distinctive, and where you're doing something that no one else is doing. Next slide, please. All right, we've made it to the last slide, and I thank you for sticking with me so far. We're almost at the finish line. So as a recap, if you had actually done all of the analyses and assessments that we've gone through so far, here's what we'd have. We've come up with the business idea through the lens of what is the problem and how is my solution unique? We've analyzed the market to become the foremost expert on that market and industry and confirm market size, industry growth, and consumer demand. We've conducted a competitive analysis to understand best practices and the strengths and weaknesses of our competitors. So basically, like, where we can stand out and how we can differentiate. We've done extensive consumer research to understand who our customers are, as well as their priorities and needs. And all of that allowed us to identify the opportunity and white space for our business and our unique value proposition. When you put all of that together, you basically have the foundational report and strategy for your business plan and your go-to-market strategy. From here, because you are, again, the foremost expert on your business and industry, you can make informed strategic decisions around your sales and marketing, budgeting and resource allocation, and potential hiring needs. This is the ultimate goal of all of this groundwork, so that you have the data, insights, and most importantly, confidence as a leader to make well-informed business decisions, because you can now comprehensively see all of the pieces on the chessboard. I hope you all took away something of value today. I have absolutely loved sharing this with you. Thank you all for being here, and I appreciate you.
Julie, thank you so much. Another great presentation. So many actionable insights to take away here. So thank you. And we do have a little bit of time for some Q&A. So if you are in the audience and you have a question for Julie, definitely make sure to drop it in that Q&A box. We'll try to get to as many as possible. So just to start off, you went through like a lot of strategies and kind of like templates that entrepreneurs can apply here in their process of evaluation. Can you highlight just some of the common pitfalls or challenges that entrepreneurs might face during this conception to launch phase and how they might overcome them?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. Based on my experience, I think the two common pitfalls are, one, not planning enough. So as I've mentioned at the earlier of the hour, I've seen a lot of brands, regardless of size, launch kind of blindly without conducting a strategic analysis like this to really truly understand the market and its consumers. Yeah. And I've already talked about why I'm a huge advocate for anyone to do this assessment, so I won't continue to ring that bell again. But I really do think that if brands don't map out their priorities, goals, and strategic roadmap before diving into a live business, then again, they're really scattered in terms of how they focus their time, how they focus their energy, how they focus their funds. And in the beginning, you are so small, and every dollar, every minute counts. So the more you can be strategic about what are the things that will move your business forward and funneling and channeling all of your energy to that one or three things, that I believe will be the most valuable and impactful for a new business. On the flip side, the pitfall that I've seen, the other pitfall that I've seen is entrepreneurs or startups or anyone can plan too much. So here people are kind of stuck in a sort of paralysis because they feel like the product, service, or strategy needs to be 100% perfect before launch. And that will never be possible because as a leader, you will always be weighing the balance between scope, budget, and time. And so, what I recommend is definitely doing enough research and analysis to have a formed strategy, but to also think about your business in iterations. Because, as great as your strategic plan is, it still created in somewhat of a static environment. And when you put that plan into a live environment, it will become dynamic. It will become more three-dimensional because there will be multiple moving pieces. And so what I'm saying is you'll never be fully 100% prepared for everything that may arise in your business. And in each step of building your business, what you're trying to do is form hypotheses and validate those hypotheses really quickly. So do the research and analyses to form your hypotheses, but then be really quick to test your assumptions and bring your product to market, even if it's in a small way. And from there, you can continue to iterate your product and service to continue to improve it for the needs of your customers.
Love it. Love it. That's super important. And I'm glad you kind of like touched on both sides of what that can look like because I feel like that balance is definitely super important. So thank you. So another question here, just, I love the kind of the way that you visualized, finding your positioning and, among your competitors and what's unique for your solution. And so, can you give a little bit more insight just into how to know whether, your services don't interest your ideal client or if you need to kind of redefine your positioning, based on the research that you end up doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think the best way to really truly understand product market fit, which is basically what you're saying, right? Like, does what you're selling interest your target audience at the price point? Would they buy it? And the best way to do that is to first conduct those customer surveys pre-launch. And if you have launched, but you feel like you haven't really gotten the right traction, and you're trying to understand where are you kind of missing the gap, then you can really, again, survey your target audience and say, what's not connecting with you? Is it the price? Is it the messaging? Is it the marketing strategies? Is it because my offer isn't tweaked for exactly what it is that you're looking for? Because again, what you're doing is you're forming a hypothesis, you're testing that hypothesis, you're confirming that hypothesis, right? And so it's going through the iteration of forming, testing, confirming. And you can only do that by asking the actual customers that you would want to engage in. Um, there are times where I work with startups and their business may feel like a little bit, just static, like it's not growing the way that it should. And the best way to navigate that is to really look through where are you performing and where are you not performing, in a way benchmark that to where the industry is and what your competitors are doing, and then going out there and actually talking to the customers that you do have or the customers that you would like to attain and getting the right insights from there.
Love it. Awesome. And I think we have what time for one last question. So, just let's say you're a founder about 3 months away from launching. What should you do now to build interest?
Oh my, I love this question. Everyone in pre-launch should be building an existing customer base that they can launch to. So that could be in the form of like a wait list. That could be in the form of getting testimonials. So remember, we talked about product and market testing. Through product and marketing testing, you're gathering people's data and insights, yes, but you're also gathering their email address and their phone numbers, and if they would be receptive to hearing from you when the brand actually launches. And I've seen that be really successful in gathering a wait list to launch to, as well as the testimonials that you would need for your website. If you're launching any kind of product or service these days, the first thing you want to do is build trust with your new consumers, because you're a new brand and people have never heard of you before. So they're going to take a little bit of time to get adjusted to the idea of maybe becoming your customer. And one of the best things to be able to gain that trust is if you have the right testimonials and the right reviews like on your website, and making sure that people are seeing, oh great, this product has been tested, it has been reviewed, and this is the result. And when I say write testimonials, do not be skewing in your data. Make sure that you are honest and comprehensive with your data. But if your product and services is anything that it should be high quality, it should be really receptive, it should have positive reviews, and those are the things that you would want to highlight on your website.
Love it. Love it. It's kind of like a kill two birds with one stone strategy.
Mhm.
Really, really awesome. Oh, all right. Thank you so much, Julie. This has been such an incredible presentation conversation. If you had just one key takeaway or piece of wisdom that you wanted to leave with the audience, what would that be?
I think it would be that we are all really strong leaders inside of us, and we are all intuitive in terms of what we're building and the value that we can bring through our business. And when you can match that intuition with data, insights, and strategy, that's how you compound your power, and that's how you really build your path to success. So I hope that if anyone takes away anything from today, is the combination of the power of intuition and strategy.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much, Julie. Always such a pleasure on behalf of the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center and everyone here today. We're just so thankful that you joined us once again.
Thank you guys so much for your time. I really loved being here, and I appreciate you all.
Awesome. And to our audience, we would love for you to join us again for upcoming webinars, which you can view using that link that's going to be posted in the chat. And thank you all so much for joining us today. We'll look forward to welcoming you back online with us soon.